Good afternoon to one and all. I welcome you all to this session. Does India neglect its 8 sisters? As the panelists for this discussion, we have Pradyot Manikya Burma, Binalakshmi Nepram, Dhruba Hazarika, and Neelesh Mishra will be moderating the session. Pradyot Bikram Manikya Burma is the head of the Royal House of Tripura. He is General Secretary of the Tripura Pradesh Congress and editor of TNT, the Northeast Today magazine. Binalakshmi Nepram from Manipur is a civil rights activist and author of Poetic Festoon, South India's Fractured Frontier, Mekli, and India and the Arms Trade Treaty. She co-founded the Control Arms Foundation of India and launched the Manipur Women Gun Survivor Network. She's a recipient of the Dalai Lama Foundation's Wiscom Scholar of Peace Award, Sean McBride Peace Prize, CNN IBN Heroes Award. Neelesh Mishra has written Once Upon a Time Zone, The Absent State, End of the Line, the story of the killing of the royals in Nepal, and 173 Hours in Captivity. Known for his radio show, Yadon Ka Idiot Box with Neelesh Mishra on Big FM 92.7, he is also co-founder, editor of Gaon Connection, India's rural newspaper. He has founded the content creation company, Content Project. Over to the speakers.
I think we should begin. So, welcome. I'm notorious as a moderator for rambling and walking and doing all sorts of antics. But, I was my last day job was as the deputy executive editor of Hindustan Times some years ago, before I took a potentially suicidal leap into the world of creativity. And as deputy executive editor, I had gone to Manipur some years ago when we were working on a series called India Besieged, which won us the Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism and later became a book, The Absent State. And I remember I was meeting an army general there, and we were generally having a conversation. And I was trying to understand why things were where they were. And he said, they are so because it took a deputy executive editor of the Hindustan Times 6 decades to come here. That sentence has stayed with me over all these years. And I think perspectives might have changed from time to time about how India, what the Indian state and what the Indian government feels towards its citizens from the states in the Northeast. And as we were just discussing, I think it's tragic and it's patronizing that we should be saying, the Northeast as one category, so to say, because we never say things like citizens in North India or citizens in South India. But I guess that's all part of the perception and part of the stereotype that we've grown up on, that we have cultivated, encouraged. And I'm glad that we have a very interesting panel here today. Do you guys want to make some opening remarks? You want to go first, Meena?
I think regarding what is known as Northeast of India, when you actually come there, what do you define by the Northeast of India? I think many people usually connote Northeast land where it's only jungles are there, you can exploit your hydroelectric potential, or it's a place where people eat anything that moves. So literally the perception of the Northeast would be if a boy dies and he must have been a drug addict, or if it's a woman, she must be morally loose. Perceptions about the Northeast which are spiraling around in today's India. But what is actually the Northeast? If you actually come there, what is Northeast of India, constituting of 8 beautiful states, home to 45 million citizens, belonging to 272 beautiful ethnic groups, a place where India's first oil was found. The tea that many of you must have drunk this morning must have been Assam tea, probably. It's a place where uranium is found. It's a place of amazing potentials. It's also a place where there were 4 beautiful kingdoms. If you think that the Northeast of India is just a landmass where half-naked tribals live, the way it's perceived, that notions like they have to be developed. It's a border zone, as if it's somewhere there out there. Northeast was the center of the world at one point of time. Kings in northern sections of India used to take permission from Manipur king to enter the Silk Route trade with China many years back. Chinese attacked Manipur in the 15th century, and we defeated them. Burma attacked and captured Manipur for 7 years. We fought back. So many of these amazing histories are there in that region. And do you know that this particular region also have seen people who fought against the British rule? For example, the Manipuri, we have 2 women's war in Manipur. First Nupilal of 1904 and the second Women's War of 1939 was fought against British colonial rule. But none of this are there. So actually Northeast of India, again, if you actually come to the Northeast, you will not find the Northeast. Okay? You'll find beautiful Assam with its amazing cultures and people. Arunachal is a world in itself. Tripura, where the titular king Pradyot is sitting here, he's a living history. 800 in line or more. After Japanese and French kings, probably, he can tell you more. But everyone thinks that the Northeast is, again, an area which needs to be civilized. So, if they are rebelling, get in the army boots there. So, what I'm just trying to say, and are everybody in the Northeast rebellious? Are they terrorists, do you think? Do I look like a terrorist to you? So, just to demystify that, before we start the debate, it's very important. Even the topic of today's Bangalore Literary Festival is wrong. It's not 8 sisters. It's 7 sisters and 1 brother in Sikkim. Okay? So we have some of these things that, as I said, but we are deeply grateful that we're here, and let's take it onwards.
Dhruba, you want
to? Thank you, Bina. Thank you. We are actually talking about the nomenclature part of it now. It's a 1-hour session. I'd just like to tell the audience that there was no such phrase called the Northeast before the British came in. There was always Manipur or Pragyotishpur, which was what Assam had borne by way of a name. But it was Arunachal Pradesh, present Arunachal Pradesh, which was called the Northeast Frontier Agency. From that, it took off. It took off, and it became a sort of a catchword for the press, for the politicians, for the bureaucrats, for civic society, and it caught on like a house on fire. The word Northeast is basically an oxymoron in its own way, because once we call about southern India, but that with Tamil there, Kerala there, with Karnataka there, and all the rest there, it's lost its significance in many ways. We don't say northern India as such. In Delhi, you don't say about northern India, but in Delhi, you say it's Northeast India, primarily because this is again a political geographical construct. For the convenience of paperwork, it is named that way. Now we have about 272 tribes, and not just tribes in the sense that, without any much of culture or without history. These are vibrant, active, splendid, flamboyant cultures which have their own dances, their own music, their own food culture, you name it, you have it. It's difficult to talk about the Northeast in a way that becomes an anthropological subject. But most of it, from whatever little we have understood, we who belong to the Northeast, and we who I we who are supposed to be savvy, by savvy I mean to say, have read some books on ourselves, have seen what the rest of India has done to us. Again, that is within quotes, I'll come to that later. These are issues which we are very sensitive about. The sensitivity criterion that is basically attached to all the tribes gives rise to the fact that we sometimes see the rest of India with different eyes, in as much as India sees the Northeast with different eyes. And what are these differences? Two major differences I can spell out now, which may be slightly abrasive to the audience. One is the Aryan culture superimposed into an otherwise Mongoloid belt of India. The northeast of India is basically an extension of Southeast Asia. The migration has been from Thailand, from Myanmar, from Yunnan province of China, and the rest, not as much as it had been from the rest of India. And the migration that had come up from the rest of India had been basically a Caucasian Aryan invasion. It could be a cultural invasion, it could be any sort of invasion, but it was that. It happened basically in the valleys, the Brahmaputra valleys, and about 70% of the northeast is hills. And in the hills, for centuries, or for, I would say, if recorded history is 5,000 years, we have preceded recorded history, and our tribes have been there for years, for 5,000, 10,000 years is perhaps peanuts, if you look at it in terms of a generation of a whole tribe, or 272 tribes. So there is a whole story behind it. I think I should now, please.
Pradyot, do you want to dwell on what, I think it's fascinating that we get a slight primer on the amazing richness and the history of states in the Northeast. But do you want to also come on to our theme for the day?
What I would say is that they've basically put the entire matter into context. Just add a couple of points. We speak about Northeast as a homogeneous entity. It's factually incorrect, logically incorrect, practically incorrect. I come from Tripura. Somebody there comes from Shillong, which is Meghalaya. Somebody comes from Manipur. Somebody comes from Assam. We cannot say that you are coming from a place called Northeast, because there is Telangana, there is Andhra, there is Kerala, there is Karnataka. You cannot say you're a South Indian. This
absolutely. So I see a kind of a stereotyping there, and I see patronizing there.
Second point, which I really wanted to emphasize upon, because the subject is the Northeast neglected? Yes, I do believe that we are neglected. I do believe that partly it is because of what Dhruba has said, the mindset of the center in Delhi, which is extremely hierarchical, where they think that the Mongolian people, the Orient, people from the Orient, are supposed to behave like that until they don't start wearing a certain dress, unless they start speaking a certain language. I also believe that our political system in the Northeast, which was evolved after 1950, has continually failed our people, because for the first 2 decades at least, we were ourselves governing our own people. I feel that we did not do justice to our people. So while I blame the center more than what I blame my people. I do believe that we as people from Northeast should also accept that we have also given some of the worst political leaders who were basically agents of, or dalals of businessmen and people who just exploited the region without actually developing it.
I'm glad you brought up that point. When the tsunami happened, and I was, as a journalist, was in Andaman and Nicobar for, I think, 2 months. And when I came away, it was with the feeling that the assistant commissioners on those islands, it was as if colonialism never went away from the Andamans, because on one island there would be this assistant commissioner who's used to ruling unquestioned, and there was no accountability, there was no monitoring, etc. And I believe to some degree, if we were to talk about the states in the Northeast, that introspection, I'm really delighted that you brought it up. The theme of the book that I just mentioned, The Absent State, was how insurgency has become a convenient excuse for misgovernance. Would you say that a theme like that applies to the states in the Northeast?
it again varies. You see, somebody's war could be somebody else's.
Yes.
In Tripura,
No, I'm not talking from the insurgent point of view.
no,
I'm talking
I
purely
will
at a
say
governance point of
there
view.
are reasons. There are
Yeah.
reasons. In Tripura, I would absolutely blame insurgency for governance, because the administration failed the indigenous people of Tripura, which used to be almost 84% in 1951. And Tripura, by the way, was an independent country which merged with India in 1949, willingly, probably the only state in the northeast which merged willingly. By the time 1965 happened, the population, the indigenous population of Tripura, from 82% was down to 27%. Now, when your own government fails to protect a land which has been protected for centuries, you do create a sense of insecurity. Second, the administration failed us because we were importing vote banks. In Tripura, it was vote bank which belonged to the majority community in India. In Assam, it is a case post-1965 where respective political parties, national political parties, have used this to import vote, to have their own vote bank politics. At some point, these have fueled insurgent movements. We in India love to say ISI, 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 ISI. Let me tell you, before 1990, 89, most of the insurgent movements were ideologically drawn from China and not from Pakistan. It is only, if you see the early history of NSCN, if you see the early history of MNF, if you see the early history of Sankrak, or even if you look at Alpha, they were largely in Myanmar camps, or they were drawing the inspiration from the Chinese. It's only after 89 that most of the insurgent groups have become tools under ISI and have started working. That is something which has to be very clearly drawn. To say that the insurgency movement was absolutely corrupt and extorted money for the first few decades is incorrect. Over the years, we have seen deterioration in the ideology of insurgency, and also we have seen that there has been visible development in certain sectors in Northeast. We cannot deny that.
Yeah, my question was slightly different. It was that I'm really not going into the correctness or incorrectness of the causes that lead to insurgency at all. I'm talking from a governance point of view. Do governments in the states in the Northeast, as in Kashmir, as in Jharkhand, as in Chhattisgarh, have they treated the insurgency as an excuse to not do their jobs?
No, that is true. If you see, AFSPA was first put in 1958, 11th of September. It hasn't solved the problem in 66 years. I don't think it'll solve it in the next 60 months.
Right.
Now, the reason why you had AFSPA, it was a blanket ban where you could pick up anyone, and outrages were done. Women were raped. If you see what happened in Mizoram, I mean, the government, the administration had completely failed. And you cannot bring in the army because your administration has failed, because the army, by and large, according to what I believe, is not supposed to be looking at civilian matters. They're supposed to be protecting the boundary. So it is a huge failure of the administration. In the case of Tripura, I said that the administration automatically changed hand when you legalized almost 60% of the refugee population.
Right.
So that means you already gave the population, the administration to the people from another country.
Right. So on one side, there is, of course, the, I would say, the arrogant and hegemonistic attitude of the central government, where there is a, it's a certain view, a certain very magnanimous, view that, okay, we are creating so-and-so for the Northeast and whatever. But at the level of governance, so I traveled to Ukhrul, bordering Myanmar, and to me, the everyday reality of Manipur was a shock that most other Indian readers, communicators have never either seen or never brought out. The fact that the parallel government of the underground is an everyday accepted reality. I mean, we were at the DC's office and there was the office of the underground 2 kilometers away, and so it's something that we have never been told with intensity, with honesty, to be able to empathize with.
I have a few things again. One doesn't come to Bangalore very often, so would like to put certain thing in connection with the topic. a lot of, in India, we use the word terrorists, insurgents, militants, all these different phrases all to us, okay? Now, and as a result, for the first time, as Pradyot said in 1958, a draconian law, which is the British passed in 1942 to subdue the Quit India movement, called the Armed Forces Special Power Act, was clamped for the first time in the Naga Hills in the year 1958 and continues till 2014 India, which is a blot on Indian democracy. It violates all Indian constituency, and this is something which is really terrible. Now, the different ways in this insurgency has come out in the Northeast. You know, in Manipur, you please come to Manipur someday, you will not find beggars. No Manipuri works in another Manipuri's house as a servant. In Delhi, you'll have 5 servants. One to clean your shoe, one to your car, one to do your I don't know what. Now, the thing is, it's a place of people with great dignity. Last year, a woman came down from Delhi to train our women survivors. Those are all below poverty line widows whose husbands have been shot dead. And this is what she said, Bina, they don't look poor. We have an extreme sense of dignity in our place. Okay? And the dignity, identity, is what we are fighting for. We are not fighting for money. We are not fighting for anything. It's about the Northeast struggle. It's not about religion. It's not about ideology. It's about a basic dignity of living, of which these 8 states for the last many centuries have lived, even before India as a nation existed. In Manipur, even before India got its first constitution, in the year 1947, Manipuris had our own constitution. We had, same with Tripura. So we had this kind of things. Now, different insurgencies. The first insurgency in Northeast was the Naga insurgency. Clearly, they wanted secessionism. Now, Naga peace talks are going the 17th year right now. So some solution is brought. The second insurgency was followed by Manipur insurgency. Some Manipuris said it's okay to join India in 1949. Some didn't, so they went to Burma for arms and training. The third form of insurgency was the Mizo insurgency. We have Mizo's sister from here. Mizos never said they wanted to be separate from India. A famine was coming. They asked the Assam government at that time was, because you know the 8 states of Northeast India was not there before. Mizoram was created out of Assam, okay? So at that time they asked, when the government didn't support the Mizo National Famine Front, dropped the word famine and became Mizo National Front and undertook an arms and training in Lhasa by the Chinese and started a 20-year insurgency warfare. So who creates insurgents out of citizens? The governance. Now that is why, I put my hand up. The reason is the relationship between insurgency and governance. First of all, let me tell you, I have in my MPhil thesis in JNU, I have said that out of the 72 armed groups which are operating in Northeast India, 80% have been created by politicians and intelligence agencies. Common people in Manipur and Northeast, we want a normal life like all of you in Bangalore. We want to lead, we want to do well. We want to just come back and enjoy a dinner at 9 o'clock. We cannot go out from a house after 5 o'clock in the evening in today's Manipur. You cannot move out with an identity card. You can be shot dead because of this act. So it's extremely important that, first of all, it's very, very strange that Delhi neglects the Northeast. It only listens to its intelligence agencies and what they speak. Can you tell a group of people to behave at the gunpoint? And for many years, the Northeast right now, as I said, we have a strong sense of dignity with us. We will fight till we get our dignity back.
It's very relevant that you brought this up. I once had a conversation in Kashmir with the DGP of the state several years ago, and I said, why does the Indian state give money to the Hurriyat conference? Because it does. And he said, sometimes it's important to keep the enemy afloat. I'm quoting. So actually, you know, this is the thinking, you very rightly said, that India, in dealing with states that are dealing with insurgency, India's thinking has been so colonial and so warped and twisted that it has never looked at the small gestures to which you pointed out. It's often not about, the 1,000 crore package at all, while it will touch the lives of the unemployed person of the street, but it is about the gestures. And those have mostly been missing from the way New Delhi has dealt with states in the northeast. Dhruba, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, the question that generated the response from Pradyot and Bina was basically whether militancy was an excuse or is an excuse for misgovernance. I feel it's not essentially very true. If you look at the Mizoram Accord, it's brought in peace for the last 20 years. There's been no gunshot in Mizoram. In Meghalaya, we have two militant groups, but Meghalaya society, civic society, literary society, cultural society, music society is at par with any other society in India, if not abroad. I would say the same thing about Assam. What began in 1979 with the birth of the ULFA has now petered off. For the last 15 years, my friends from Assam who are here or from the Northeast, including Pradyot and Bina here, will agree with me. There is no, I would say, I'm not being very autocratic by saying this. There's no question of dissent on this. But the administration has been, I think, almost as good as, perhaps even better than some of the states. If you look at the Maoist infested states in central India, Assam is 100 times better than that.
Right.
So basically, Deepak, I think it's not very, very true and very correct to say that militancy has been an excuse for misgovernments, by which I mean to say that, even politicians have their good colors, even bureaucrats have their proper colors.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So that is the question.
What prompted that question was, I'll just come to you in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
What prompted that question was, I had made a right to information application several years ago, asking about the money spent on development funds in the insurgency affected states of the country, district-wise. How much was spent, how much was not spent, under which plan? I got some fascinating replies, district-wise, in about 10 to 11 states around the country, which included the Maoist affected.
I think I could reply to that too.
So 50 to 55% of development funds are not used every year. They lapse, they just go back. So the schools and the roads and the bridges that are to be built to address people's angst and unrest are not built because that money is not spent. Now, so the government officials say, and I'm sure they're right on many counts, that there is fear. If we build a school, they'll kill us. But I also went into a lot of areas where, for example, I went into in Jharkhand, where the NREGA was working perfectly in the heart of a Naxal area. So the question of governance, I think, needs to be looked at in a slightly more nuanced way. You want to say something?
Yeah, no, I'll just see. That's why, I agree with Dhruba and I agree with Bina. That's why I started by saying, do not club Northeast as one. Sure, exactly. Mizoram has been successful, and while the same peace accord in Tripura has been hugely unsuccessful. So I'll give you Arunachal has been, there's been relatively peace there. When we speak about India, this is what I find extremely baffling. When we speak about India, India is not a living organism. There are individuals who are at the point of power who are actually taking decisions.
Yeah.
I don't think the mindset on those individuals have changed. Second thing, when you say that development in these areas, the chicken and egg theory, that if we bring in roads, then you shoot us. If you bring in schools, then you shoot the teachers. If you bring in health camp, you shoot them. I'll give you an example. There are 87 schools in the Tripura Tribal Autonomous District Council, which is largely filled with the indigenous people of Tripura, out of which 43 are there to camp the CRPF, Assam Rifles and BSF. Right. Now, obviously you are not going to have a high rate of literacy when the same people are supposed to go and catch your parents or anyone who looks the same. And there's a big problem. You see, who are these people tackling insurgency at the ground level in the northeast, or let's say Tripura, or let's say in Nagaland or Manipur? it is not Major General Brar who's playing golf in the Delhi golf course. It is some guy you have picked up who's a Jawan, who's been away from his family for three years. They see a girl walking in the middle of the road. That's the moment. And do you think self-dignified people in a small restrictive society, when they see such outrage, will they keep quiet? Yes, they will. But eventually, that anger simmers.
Absolutely.
And almost every family in Manipur, in Mizoram, during before the Mautha famine, the women were raped, they were picked up. I myself, let me say this on record, in 1998, as a 19-year-old boy, I was picked up at 1:30 in the morning by the so-called peaceful Meghalaya police. My sister was picked up at 1:30 in the morning with armed male police. For what? Because there was insurgency at that time in Tripura, and we happened to hit the profile of the people. So, mere suspicion and wrong implementation of the policy by politicians, by administrators, not all, have definitely affected it. But largely in states where the governance has been poor. In the state of Assam, it's largely been the Assam police tackling the Alpha problem. After the Operation Bajrang happened, it's a state in Meghalaya. I know when R.G. Lingdo became the Home Minister, Lot Singh Sangma became, after Lot Singh Sangma, we've had a continuous Home Ministers of the state and Chief Ministers, where the Meghalaya police, which is filled with Garos, Jaintias, Khasis, who have tackled the problem, not right. Mr. Chautala from Haryana. So that is where the problem lies. You need to have local intelligence. Right now, intelligence is by some people playing golf, some people having a party in the canteen,
absolutely,
and calling up us media people and getting information.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Great. So now looking ahead, how does the perception of the Northeast, how can it, you feel, become more realistic? Because it's a state, it's a region that is like any other region in the country. Like you said, better governed in many parts than, say, Jharkhand.
Don't club the Tibetans with Northeasterners.
Correct. So now
it's happening. Don't club the Northeasterners with Tibetans.
Right.
Don't stop us from entering malls. I know how many times people from Delhi University get picked up whenever some Chinese diplomat comes. We do it to our own people, yeah?
Right.
Then how can we say that we have to change? It is not them who are doing it. It's the people who have the power who don't bother to do their homework and will pick up anyone who looks Oriental.
Right.
So it's happening in front of us.
So do you feel that in journalism, for example, do you feel that what is being written about the Northeast, in writing, do you feel that because those voices have really not been given the platform that they deserve? I just came away after watching Mary Com 2 days ago. Now, we might have different points of view on a film like that, or a Chak De, where there were some dialogues which were audacious enough to say that India doesn't look at.
Okay, I'll just put certain things, call a spade a spade. 45 million citizens living in 8 states, defined within bracket as the Northeast. They also, as I said, want to lead a normal life. But at the moment, a lot of negative, not just in media, like, does India neglect its Northeast? Yes. In 3 ways. Socially, and where your films and the media and everything comes about, okay? Now, first is, so I club it in 3 areas. In Hindi films, Pradyot and I had many talks with Abhay Deol, in which he told, in Hindi films, usually it's the hero comes from Punjab, North India. Heroine comes like Deepika Padukone from your Bangalore. And the villain usually then in Dongjangba comes from the Northeast. Okay. So that is one. We need to break that stereotype.
And if you want to make a bold subject, film in a bold subject, get an Anglo-Indian girl called Julie. Okay, get a Julie. So there. Number 2, I remember Monica Dogra, a singer, told in many, again media, in many of the magazines like Femina or Cosmopolitan or I don't know, whatever you read here, they are told not to put a Northeastern face because it doesn't sell. India, this needs to break. You really need to, because this is a diverse country of 1.2 billion, where about 5,000 mother tongues are spoken.
You cannot impose your Hindi on everyone, can you? So we need to accept these diversities and work upon it. So socially you need, and in the social thing comes the cultural, okay? And even in the, because a child's formative age is class 1 to class 10 or whatever, you know. I was very shocked after doing 5 years of history that there was not a single chapter of Northeast history in the Indian main curriculum. You got to get that. Because if you know about Rani Ki Jhansi, you must know Rani Gaidinlu.
Absolutely.
Okay? So number 2, politically. Politically, where are we? Pradyot is a politician himself. So he can tell you how many, like, what is our voice here? No one bothers about us because we have one Nagaland MP from Nagaland, one MP from Nagaland, one from Sikkim, whereas a state like Uttar Pradesh and altogether Northeast has about 30 or 25 members of parliament, whereas Uttar Pradesh is about 80. Unless we have microphones in parliament, how will you get your voice heard? Okay? So politically also and economically. Economically, it's very interesting. Pradyot and I went to Harvard a year and a half back, 2 years back, and I attended the Harvard India Business Conference. And all the investors were there. I just raised my hand and said, how much of your investment in India goes to Northeast? The answer was 0. 0 was the investment, okay. With this mind, what happened? So these are the 3 layers in which there's a lot of this. Finally, okay, why, okay, Northeast, my God, India loves our resources. We have oil and gas in Tripura. We have got gold in Meghalaya. You know, uranium. The thing is, Assam oil,
yeah.
The thing is like this. Honestly, I don't know if Government of India officials are there. One is sitting next to me. For me, this is, let me call a spade a spade. They need our resources, don't you, Dhruv? Take it. We are not saying don't take it, but at least give it back to the people. Number 2, in Arunachal and Sikkim, I went visited, 100 dams are built in one of the most seismic zones of the country, which is Harakiri. You're killing yourself. Please, development by saying that the people of, indigenous people of Northeast can be dead. And you know why the army is there? Not because of national security. It's because they can impose and extract our minerals. That we will not allow it to happen, okay? Take our resources. We don't want, right. Okay, we are ready to share. But right now, militarization of the Northeast is a big issue. 50,000 people have died in 6 decades of violence. In Manipur, 20,000 registered widows. This cannot go on, okay? So right. Utterly, at this moment in 2014, India utterly neglects its Northeast. It's only Bangalore Literary Fest which welcomes us. Okay.
Right. I want to throw it open to the audience if there are any questions. 4 or 5 questions. Yes, ma'am. Are there mics?
Can we give the mic? No, we'll give you the mic.
Good afternoon. I'm Professor Maya Chakravarthy from Symbiosis. First of all, I wanted to congratulate the organizers for including the 7 sisters in this, because I wanted to just tell you about my personal experience. I'm now from the education space. Let me tell you, you should not feel apologetic that you're neglected. AICTE, UGC, they all have given lot of SOPs to the 7 sisters, and developed cities from south, north, east, west are having tie-ups, which is just a sham, so that they can piggyback ride on the 7 sisters universities. So whatever benefits should really go to them through twinning programs and other associations, as it were, is being taken by these other organizations. So you are also contributing. So don't be apologetic that you're not doing. And the next one is, of course, this is what I discovered.
Right. So. Any questions? Yes.
Firstly, I would like to thank you all for giving a very clear idea about the Northeast. I am an officer in Indian Oil Corporation, and one of its branch, BRPL and Assam Oil Division, that is basically a part of Indian Oil. Basically, I have one concern and one question. First concern is like AFSPA, like it basically depends on the demography and the geography. If you call about the insurgency, then the Chinese separatist movement and the Bangladesh Bangladeshi insurgents. Those two are very big factors which the army should control, and in a very clear-cut policy manner. AFSPA, I didn't knew this 5 p.m. you can't go and all this thing. Thank you for bringing that information out. But I think the policy should be very clear, and the approach should also be clear in encountering the separatist movement as well as the insurgency. Because I came to know from Rajiv Malhotra's book, who will be coming the last day, that the Chinese basically have territorial expansionism. They have the nationalism to expand the territory, like the South China Sea and all those things, Vietnam, Japan, India also. So they basically want to control the natural resources. They want to take the water territory, Brahmaputra and all. So
Can you
that
limit
needs
your
to
question,
be controlled.
please?
Second thing, I wanted to tell you that yes, in literature, in academia, I think the culture, art of the traditional tribes 272, what you spoke, should be inducted. And in a novel, poetry, prose, everything, like I have seen the books here, but Northeastern books I couldn't find. So that is lagging. Northeastern poets, writers, culturists, everything, every spectrum of people, they should come, and they should come in a big way, so that this should feel like, okay, they are also contributing in a big way. See, a small way is okay in Northeastern states, but in a big way also, Northeastern culture should come. That is very rich, and that is very traditional also, and we all are very proud of it, very proud. So that should come basically. So these things I wanted to
Your
say.
name,
Thank
please,
you.
sir?
My name is Gaurav Kumar.
Gaurav Kumar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Acha. Gaurav ji, first of all, you've made, have a seat, please. I mean, first of all, Chinese expansionism, as you said, and you said that you work in Indian Oil. Let me be very clear. The Chinese ideology and the Maoist ideology is not there in the Northeast, because it is Nagaland for Christ. It is Assam has Alpha has a largely excuse me. Bangladeshis also are Hindu Bangladeshis. In Tripura, the problem is with the Hindu Bangladeshis. In Assam, the problem is with the Muslim Bangladeshis. So please distinguish between that. Second thing, when you speak about AFSPA, I believe the Prime Minister of India, who happens to be from my own party at one point of time, said that the Naxalism and Maoism is the biggest problem in India. And that has clear definition roots from the Chinese, the Maoist movement. Why haven't you imposed AFSPA in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh? Why is it that Northeast is a guinea pig there? So you cannot have two lopsided policies. You have, what is the excuse of having it in Northeast and not having it in these Naxal areas? Second thing, the Home Minister of India at some point of time had said that we cannot bombard the people, aerial bombarding is not allowed in these Naxal areas because these are our own people. Please go and look back when Tufani air jets actually bombarded Mizoram, a territory of India, the only time in the history of India where our own fighter jets have bombarded it. So in the name of saying that we are countering Chinese intelligence or Bangladeshi intelligence, sir, we created Bangladesh technically. If we want to control Bangladesh, we can control Bangladesh. Why don't you have AFSPA in and around the entire Pakistan border through Rajasthan? We don't. It is basically a very easy policy of us not going to the depth of the matter and blaming it everything on foreign hand.
Yeah, AFSPA should not actually be imposed on the democracy of the civilians in the northeastern state.
No, AFSPA should not be democracy for all Indians.
Correct. Means it should be very clear-cut in every state, and
first of all, there's no
homogeneity
such
should
thing as
also be
Northeast
there
Indians.
at the same time.
Second of all, let me give you an example. Since we are in Bangalore, there's a huge problem with the Tamil problem with Rajpaksa coming down to Delhi. Do we sanitize all the South Indian population? Or we just do it to few Vaikos or few South Indian leaders, Tamilian leaders? We don't. We say, okay, we identify them. When the Chinese premier comes, then we club the whole Northeastern people and you club them together. There's a problem of in-depth knowledge and intelligence in that area.
Okay, I've received the signal that we have to have just one more question, which will be yourself, the black t-shirt. Dhruba.
Just about half a minute, because one's just trying to balance out certain things, hopefully. Whatever law and order is required is basically a state issue. We'll have to, if those who are into political science or those who are in the know of the entire way India functions, we all know, of course, I'm not trying to be, overbearing in this. We have what we call the center-state relations. What subject is allotted to whom and for what. When you take about law and order, you have to take in the geographical contiguity of a certain place. Okay, we are talking about Kashmir, we are talking about Tamil Nadu, we are talking about 1,600 kilometers that comprise the borderline with foreign countries in the northeast. So you will have to, it's not for a lawmaker only to think about this, it's also for civil society to understand the peculiarities of each case. I'll give you just one little hint. Whenever Pakistan attacks India or tries to attack India, almost every villager on the border is out with a tiffin box to give it to the soldier. Does it happen in any other place with the same kind of passion? I'm putting the question across to you. Okay? I think that was all that I had.
Okay, let me be very clear with this. The insurgency in Northeast had its inception from the lands. It was not because of the Chinese. Let me make very clear to you. Many of you are mothers in this room. When you want to scare your child to sleep, you said, "Bahar mein kuch hai." Okay? So always it is politics to say, oh, there is Chinese there. There is something there. There is Pakistan there, okay? Remember first that it is people who want just basic right to live. They just want to lead a normal life. Do not let that happen, okay? The other thing is in terms of, I like your idea about, poetry, writings, and everything of the Northeast should be. In fact, whenever I visit any shopping mall, quote unquote, in and around Delhi, I dream of the day that those shelves are also filled with writings from the Northeast, as well as in other parts of India. It's always Chetan Bhagat. Where are you? Okay, so it is very important that it has to be a consensus process. And in terms of, as I said, always India says national security. Okay, what is national security? It is not when your MPs have got Z category security. It is when you and I are able to walk the streets of Delhi, Manipur, or Bangalore without a fear of being bombed, without stepping on an IED. So it's extremely important that the Armed Forces Special Power Act is not there for national security. Army has been there for the last 58 years. In fact, the army which has never won a victory is the Indian Army in the Northeast. It's a real moral failure, actually. So we should be very clear that rather than eulogizing it, you are talking against AFSPA, then you say you're anti-national. My foot. It's not. AFSPA violates our own constitution. It's a black law which needs to go. And I love India, as many one of you sitting in this room, and who are listening to this. But AFSPA is an act which violates Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which says every Indian has a right to life. But AFSPA says, I'm a soldier, I can shoot you dead. And we cannot even go to court. Is that fair in a democracy? So as long as AFSPA is there, India cannot be called a true democracy.
Right.
This is our message.
No, absolutely. A lot of horrendous things have been done in this country in the name of national security and official secrets. I'm afraid I will not be able to take that last question. And I want to thank the panel, Bina, Dhruba, Pradyot, sorry. And it was great learning for me as well. And I do hope that in our consciousness, in our writing, in our creative space, and in our discussions, we come with more forward-looking ideas, and as we did some of them today. And thank you very much for being on the stage.
If we may say so, I would request all of you all who are not from the Northeast to please visit our area. There is a world which is beyond development. It is green, it's pristine, it's beautiful. It is as much your country, as much as your part of the country as this is ours. You all should come there. And I think the only way we have learned or heard about Northeast is through intelligence or through individuals sitting in dais. Why don't you all come there one day and experience Northeast? Because the first-hand information and knowledge is the best way to make India stronger and more united. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the wonderful session. Now, Binalakshmi will be reading out a small poetry from her side.
I'm leaving tomorrow from here, so I couldn't go without reading out a little bit of poetry to prove that I write. That I just not only shout against ups, but I do write. I started writing poetry when I was in class 6. When I came to Delhi, my poetry died because looking at Delhi concrete, I write on disarmament, human security. But this is a poem that I wrote on the birth of insurgency. The title of the poem is The Birth of Insurgency. The birth of insurgency is in wronged histories, wronged destinies. The birth of insurgency is in radical ideals, rushing blood and guns. The birth of insurgency is in damaging governmentality, dirty policies and politics. The birth of insurgency is in witnessing innocent deaths, wronged arrests and torture. The birth of insurgency is in hungry bodies, haunted futures. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was wonderful. There has been a slight change in the schedule. Please bear with us for some time. We'll keep you informed.